Thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Pint Podcast. Our show will start right after these messages from our sponsors.
Hey, Matt. We're thinking of selling our home and finding a bigger place.
Oh, really? I thought you guys loved where you lived.
Oh, we do. Our family is just growing. With pets. A dog, a cat, 2 guinea pigs, a hamster.
And you're planning on getting more?
Maybe a goat or a crocodile.
Well, I have the person for you. Kimmy Najad is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients.
We're just browsing now. I'm not sure if we really need a realtor yet.
Yeah, no worries. Kimmy can help you with the comparative market analysis to help you determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work at your pace.
Awesome. All right, I'll give her a shot. What's her phone number?
On Facebook, Kimmy Najad, Exit Realty Metro. Her phone number is 902-880-8429, and her email is kimia@exitmetro.ca.
902-880-8429. Awesome. Thanks.
This podcast was brought to you by Dan Lomas. That's LOMAS of lomasfinancial.ca.
Are you a small business owner who wants to keep more of your hard-earned profits and pay less taxes to the CRA? Do you want to plan for a comfortable and secure retirement? If your answer is yes, then you need to talk to Dan Lomas at Lomas Financial.
Dan Lomas is a financial advisor who has been helping successful entrepreneurs and business owners for over 2.5 decades. He utilizes customized solutions that can help you keep your earnings, dramatically reducing passive income tax.
Dan Lomas and his team will help you transition corporate wealth into personal wealth by utilizing customized executive pension plans. Dan will show you how to convert business wealth into personal wealth in a professional manner.
Don't let the CRA take more money than they deserve. Don't let your retirement dreams fade away. Contact Dan Lomas today and let him guide you on your path to financial success.
Visit Dan Lomas at lomasfinancial.ca or call him direct at 902-209-0855. That's 902-209-0855.
Cheers!
Cheers!
Welcome to the Afternoon Bite. I'm Mike Tobin.
I am Matt Conrad.
And today we have
Angela Amirault.
Angela Amirault. And Angela, what do you do?
I am a psychedelic therapist.
Wow,
Trippy.
that's cool.
Yeah. So basically that means I have a background in psychotherapy, but now I use basically plant medicines to support people in their growth and working through trauma and past experiences or just spiritual exploration.
Cool.
What did we put in these beers?
I don't know, man. This might be a psychedelic show.
Usually I work very strongly with consent, so I would never sneakily add
No?
any
I wasn't accusing you. I was accusing us.
Fair.
Yeah. So how did you get into this?
That is a good question. So, like I said, I have a background in psychotherapy, but
And just for people who don't know, psychotherapy, like what's the breakdown on that?
counseling,
Yeah.
therapy in general. I would have trained, so I got a degree in psychology here in Nova Scotia, and then I skedaddled and I moved to Ireland. And when I was living in Ireland, I continued my education.
Now you say
Irish.
Ireland
I know.
like
she says
I
like you're
lived
from
there.
Ireland.
I lived there for 12 years,
So can
and there's
you-
no way I could say Ireland, and they would be like, "Get out."
Yeah.
So I became. That's one of the only words that sounds like I'm from there. But Ireland is just I say it like they do, and I lived there for 12 years.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I get to spend a month there. That was my extent.
Haven't
It's a
been.
beautiful place.
It's on my
awesome.
wish list.
Like my
the Claddagh. I saw that.
That's
Cool.
my grandfather's wedding ring. When he died, I got it. He was made in
wow.
Ireland.
Yeah.
we got
Cool.
good friends. We have like 3 generations of friends in Ireland.
Yeah.
So when I get to go over there, it was great. They just said like, we have a place for you to stay. Stay as long as you want. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Lots of
Ireland,
kids.
you continued your studies there,
Yeah,
right?
so I got a graduate diploma in counseling and psychotherapy, and I started my own private practice, and I ran courses and workshops and groups. But me and my family got just kind of, we loved it there, but we're a little tired of the rain.
So your family went with you to Ireland?
No, I mean, like I met my husband there.
Okay.
We had a son there, so my son was
Okay.
born. He's
Yep.
Can-Irish. He was
Can-Irish,
born in
I like
Ireland.
that, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
But then we moved to Colorado, and while I was there, like I was actually working first in addictions. Really, I was providing the treatment for multiple DUI offenders.
Okay.
So folks who, they had a program where it's like instead of going to jail, they would be in pretty much quite intense treatment, where they would be in therapy or group therapy numerous times a week, but they didn't have to go to jail. And so it was really about rehabilitation.
Okay.
But and I was working with probation and everything, but at that point I was still really drawn to psychedelics, and I'd been following research that's been happening for years, but I couldn't do any training in Ireland. But I was in Boulder, Colorado, where there was just lots of different things happening.
And Colorado was a leader in getting the medicinal marijuana going.
I think Colorado and Washington were the first two states, right?
Yeah, they were. So it's like I moved, like moving to a place, like I've always been a fan of cannabis, but I couldn't, it's not as common, and it's still quite, like, it's just not openly used really in Ireland.
Where in Ireland were you, by the way?
I was in Galway for 2 years, and
nice.
I was in Dublin for 10.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Now, were you always a cannabis user?
Yeah. So from like when I was younger, but I used it like, it really was like a numbing thing for me, which I didn't realize until like I would just use it, and it was like a good way to keep like a barrier, keep me like on an even keel, not feeling too much, not feeling too little. And it was only when I started my own like psychotherapy training in Ireland, which involved a lot of intensive therapy, and I was doing like a deep dive into self. And after like really big experiences, I come home and be like, man, I'd really like to smoke a joint. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And because it wasn't as readily available, it actually made me really notice like, why is that? Like, why is it that like not being able to get it allowed me to have this space to really examine my relationship with it. And then I moved to Colorado, and it was interesting, and I could use it, but it would make me anxious. So I'd feel like a tightness in my chest, and I was like, oh, I used to love the way I felt when I used cannabis, but it doesn't seem to do that for me anymore. But I found this psychedelic therapy training, and it was using cannabis to help learn the skills to become a psychedelic therapist.
Okay, so sorry, just psychedelic therapist. Just to like pause on that. When I think of psychedelic, I think mushrooms and acid. I don't really think weed. Right?
Most people don't, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I was interested in this training, and I was like, I don't think cannabis is a psychedelic.
Right.
However, I really want to do this training. I want to learn the skills. I want to know how I can support people in this way. So I did the training, took part in it, and so it was very experiential in nature. So I had to do my own journeys. We were very supported in the experience, but like for my very first journey, I remember feeling like nervous and a little anxious, and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I was like, but it's cannabis. It's got to be fine.
Right.
But the guy who was leading it had said, like, these are all the things that can happen. Like, there can be shaking and vibrating. There can be releases of big emotions, and you can connect to joy, and there can be imaginal. You can meet entities, and all these things. I was like, this sounds super psychedelic. So let's go for it. So it started with a smoking ceremony, and then after that, and this is the same way I work with my clients. I do these same protocols. And then there's a guided meditation. So in the meditation, you're laying down, eye mask is on. And so that's what I was doing. And I was laying down. All of a sudden, in the experience, eyes closed, I could see my chakras. And, like, I never understood why in, like, yoga studios.
Chakras.
Yeah, exactly. So you ever see a poster where it's, like, someone lotus, so sitting cross-legged, and there'd be, like, looks like, there's seven. So it's, like, there'd be, like, a point on the head, a point on the throat, a point in the chest, and it'd be different colors.
Yeah.
Those are your chakra points. So it's like energy points in the body. Again, seen the posters, never made sense to me. And in the meditation, he said, you are so safe. You are so held. And in that moment, I got this kick to my heart chakra. And this grief that I had been holding on to for 15 years, that years of therapy could not touch, was just unleashed in that moment. And it's because cannabis is actually very somatic. So people are like, I don't think cannabis is a psychedelic. How many times have you heard the story of someone who's had too many edibles and they are like, I'm having a heart attack?
Right.
They're not.
Right.
It's actually the perfect example of a bad trip, but we don't think of it with cannabis. What's happening is they're actually having a quite big psychedelic experience. And because it's very somatic, it happens in the body, but they're not in a safe container. Like, they're not in a safe space, and they don't realize what's happening. But in that experience for me, I could let go of this pain that I'd been holding on to.
So the pain that you're holding on to, if you don't mind asking about that, I don't want to get too personal.
No, that's
anywhere
fine.
You don't want to go.
This I've talked about. I'm fine with talking about
But like
this
talking
genuinely.
about your pain,
Yeah.
because this is going to mean something to other people, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of feelings were you holding for this long that you just really couldn't shake, and what your healing helped with? Like, what was it?
It was grief. So I had lost my dad when I was quite young, and I'd been in therapy for years, but the whole thing is like, it was shocking when it happened. It was unexpected. And there's only so much we can process.
How old were you when you lost your father?
I was 19. So I was in my second year of university.
Still super young,
yeah. And it was also, it's like why I was using cannabis to numb. I didn't want to feel, I was like, I got to finish university. And it's also why I left. I was like, it's too painful to be here. So
Right.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, I understand.
And I was, again, in therapy for years, and I really felt like I'd done so much work around that piece. But the somatic, the body part of it, like the shock that my body held when it happened and the years that followed, it couldn't be processed in an emotional speaking way. I had to get into the actual body. And so in that moment when my body felt safe, and I remember when he said, like, you're so safe, you're so held, and I got this kick, literally the voice in my head was, you haven't really felt safe since your dad died. And it was like allowing myself to process this on a very deep,
Right.
like, it was stuff that had been like calcified to my body.
And why do you think the weed helped and the no offense to the therapy,
No,
but the therapy
no.
didn't? And like, because I mean, a lot of people see therapists helping
Yep.
with this kind of stuff.
And I have a background in therapy.
And
It's just
you
not.
think it's different strokes for different folks?
I think it's different strokes. I think it's also, we are really good at deflecting.
Right.
We're really good. We have our defense mechanisms are there to keep us safe.
For sure.
And so there'd be certain times where it's like, I couldn't, like, our body wants to keep us safe as well. And so when our nervous system gets activated, it's either fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And that's our reaction. Mine would have been freeze. Like, I would have been very much in anxiety. And it's like, I couldn't have gone into that feeling because all I would have felt was the anxiousness. So
Right.
like I said, when I used to smoke cannabis, I would get to that anxious feeling. I couldn't get past it. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get under it until I was in a therapeutic setting where I felt safe, and under that anxiety was grief. And so it's one of those, until that experience, I was like, cannabis is, it can't be used in this way. But I've now been using it therapeutically for myself, and I've
Yeah.
been working with clients doing this for years. The clinic I trained with and then worked at, have been doing this for 12 years.
Oh, cool.
And it really does work in a very deep and meaningful way.
Now, so your customers, are they usually smoking weed already too?
No,
Or
many
are they
have never
usually,
smoked.
like, green to it?
Some are green to it.
Okay.
Some
Green
would,
to it, get it?
Yeah.
Stuck that in there.
Yeah, you did a well job. Good job. Sometimes they have no experience. Sometimes they have a lot, but they've never used cannabis in a more intentional way. Sometimes they it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I don't think cannabis can help me in this way. Or then they start talking to me, they're like, actually, the getting into the body is what I need. And so that's a way to get into it. Because there's lots of other psychedelics, like psilocybin. All of these can really help process some things.
You don't do any of that, though. It's just cannabis.
Right now,
for
I'm
you?
working with cannabis just due to also the legality of it,
Yeah.
where it's like sometimes folks, like, energetically, when you have to do something illegal to try to get to healing, can also cause blocks. Or like when I was in Colorado, like, psilocybin had been legalized.
There's always was stress about weed when it was not legal for
Yeah.
a lot of people,
Right.
right? You
Yeah.
don't want to be caught with it. You don't want to be.
But there are clinics that
yeah.
do that now.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
need, there's certain like
Mushroom
Canadian
clinics, like
Yeah.
yeah.
There's certain approvals, and then they have to have approvals, and it's like sometimes you need like then a doctor's referral or all that. And the thing to note with psilocybin is that it's not for everyone just because of the contraindicators. So basically that would be like the medical reasons that it won't work or isn't good for you. So if you're on any SSRIs, which are serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so they really help with depression, or if you're on any anti-anxiety or antidepressant medications, you really shouldn't take psilocybin because you can get something called serotonin syndrome, and that's where when you already have something that's trying to flood your body with serotonin, then you take psilocybin. What happens is there can be such a huge amount of serotonin that gets dumped into the body that it can actually cause illness or even death.
Wow.
So most clinics, and like clinics that are legit, would recommend all people titrate or wean off whatever mental health medication they're on, and then be off it for at least 6
okay.
weeks before working with psilocybin. And if you're anyone out there, if anyone's like, you can just take it, it's like, it's really not recommended just because of that serotonin in the body and how dangerous it can be. And maybe it's worked for a little while, but if all of a sudden that serotonin gets overwhelmed in the system, it just can have really negative side effects.
I do kind of. I also I think it's the same thing with cannabis. I think there's some people who just shouldn't do cannabis. There's some people who shouldn't do alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. Like, of any sorts of whatever substance it might be. Like, I have some family members that I think cannabis did them pretty wrong.
Yeah.
I think they have underlying issues
Yeah.
that they should not have participated in any like mind or body altering substance.
Yeah.
And they self-diagnosed, and led them down a really bad
Yeah.
place.
And there's definitely some like personality disorders, and there's certain things that they've found psychedelics they don't know if they're actually of benefit for.
Yeah.
And again, it's about like there's people that can get really, really sick from cannabis, and that's mainly from using really, really high THC concentrates. And what will happen is then they'll just start vomiting, and that will happen every time they use cannabis. And it's usually from using the very high THC concentrates.
You know what's funny you say that. I was actually speaking to somebody this week, and they deal with physical pain.
Yep.
And I said, I just said, like, have you tried cannabis? Like, I'm like, I don't like to really smoke.
Yeah.
I have, obviously, in the past and everything, but I haven't in years. I just don't enjoy it that way, but I'll take edibles. But I actually prefer the drinks.
Yeah.
I love the drinks. I think they're fantastic. But the person who I was speaking to, I think they said they may have had a high concentration, whatever, and they said they get sick now for having THC or CBD.
Yeah.
And they actually get physically ill. And I was like, I'd not heard of this.
And it won't, so far they don't know a way to cure it. And so it will probably happen every time they use cannabis, it's a more recent thing. And I was working with someone who
That's why the weed's so much stronger now.
Yeah, and not even just, it's more the oils, because you can get like 100% or like 90-something percent THC, which our bodies have never really been able to break down. And so they think that's what it is. It's just, it's too much. Right. Where it's like, with the way I'm working with dried flower, just because it's like you can smoke it, you can then control the experience. So the only difficulty with edibles if trying to work in a therapeutic space is just that depending on what you've eaten, depending on how you're feeling,
take a while to kick in.
It'll take a while to kick in. It might take longer. You might need more. It's like, unless you can really get that dose like honed in, it's easier where you just smoke and it's like, do you need more? It's like you kind of check in. It's like, I need a little more.
That's actually why I think I've discovered that I like the drinks a little better, because I could take an edible and sure, maybe in like 45 minutes to an hour it might kick in, but then I've had where it's like an hour and a half, I'm like, I don't feel anything. The drinks I could set your watch to it.
Yeah.
30 to 35 minutes in, my feet start going numb. And like 5 minutes after that, I'm like, I feel fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
Just one drink. I have a low tolerance when it comes to cannabis.
That's okay, yeah.
So I think it's great, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Where's the line now for you as someone that uses weed for yourself therapeutically between therapy and recreation?
Yeah.
I mean, there must be like at different times, or you use different strands. How do you kind of do all that?
Yeah, so I would have a particular blend that I use for the journeys and for the medicine work. And when I'm working with clients, I tell them like, this is what you need to have this type of experience.
Sure.
And then otherwise, I enjoy just exploring. Like I really like hybrids because indicas can make us sleepy and sativas can make us too activated. And so I like a hybrid in the middle. And it's kind of like I've just been exploring my own relationship with it. Like I'm not drinking alcohol these days just because I've noticed it doesn't have any positive benefits for me. I used to enjoy it, and then it's been more recently. It's like I can't sleep if I have it. It can make me feel like a bit panicky at times. It's just whatever it used to do for me, it doesn't do anymore. I get no positive benefit. So I just kind of decided like I'm just not going to drink anymore. And I don't miss it. It's just like, I'm pretty in tune with my body, or at least I try to be. And so it's like, I kind of just have been noticing, like, I'm trying to go towards more of the things that make me feel good, or at least neutral in myself, and not things that make me feel worse.
You don't have to pay for the next morning, so to speak. Like
not at all,
alcohol
no.
Sometimes can be a little rough the next
and
day.
sometimes I have found some edibles,
sometimes very rough for some. Maybe not for you, but for me.
For you, yeah. I've never been hungover in my life.
Yeah.
How is that possible? You've just never drank enough.
Oh, no, trust me, I've drank a lot. No, I don't know. I've never been hungover.
Something to do with brain size, I think, you know?
It definitely has to do with brain size. It just floats
bigger
around
brain.
in there. It just floats around in there and everything. It's just not rocking up against the walls or anything.
Nice. A nice little cushion of water.
Exactly, yeah. But honestly, I actually think because there can be so much to the science, and because there can be addictions, and I know some people think that you can't be addicted to cannabis.
Totally can.
I think you can be addicted to anything.
It's habit forming, so it doesn't have the same addictive qualities, but it can definitely be habit forming. Or like myself, like I used it to numb myself. Like I was not addicted, but I was enjoying not feeling things.
Well, but I mean, I think, there's that. I mean, but I think, everyone knows, like, you can get addicted to McDonald's, you can get addicted to gambling, you can get addicted to cigarettes, obviously, drugs, to alcohol, whatever. I'd argue you can get addicted to anything. I think you can get addicted to church, like, really. You can get that same kind of, like, high.
It's a dopamine.
Exactly. So that's the thing. There's something that's triggering your brain, the dopamine in your brain, that you're like, I just want that. Mm-hmm. Right? So, but that's why I think it actually kind of speaks even more important to like talk to somebody like yourself, because we know that at no point in time we should be self-diagnosing.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're emotional about something, you shouldn't really be the one making the logical decisions.
I mean, and I'd say that to an extent. I think sometimes though, like even in the work I'm doing, like I trust that whoever I'm working with, like they know themselves best.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I found, like, and it's like I couldn't name it until I started working like in the psychedelic world more so. It's like as a therapist, people come in, they'd be like, this is what's wrong, what do I do? And I always felt like internally, like, I don't freaking know. Like it's you, it's your body. Like I can help and we can try to work things out, where it's like with working with like these medicines is amazing. It's like a person comes in and my job is to make sure they feel as safe as possible to explore what they need to. So it's like I trust that their body and the medicine is going to lead them towards the healing. Like myself, when I started that journey, like I didn't realize how much grief was stuck to my body, but my body knew it was in there somewhere. And it's like that my intention for that experience was healing, and that's what I got.
Yeah.
And so in this work, it's more like someone might come in and they might know like this is the thing, or I've had so many people be like, there's this block. And it's like, I don't know what that block is exactly, but I know there's a block and I've been able to avoid it in talk therapy. I've been able to avoid it in this. And so it's like, it's more, I guess, that knowing of self. But yeah, and sometimes a diagnosis for people also isn't helpful.
Right.
It depends. Like I've talked to some people like, I was diagnosed with this. And yes, this answers so many questions.
Yeah.
Then other people are like, I was diagnosed with this. And it's like, well, now what?
Yeah.
So it's really figuring like, but I think either way, like to your point, it's like I think we all need support. I think all of us need a good listener.
Guide,
we need someone.
I wonder if the
in
weed
life.
kind of tunes them in a little bit to that too, right? Where it just kind of puts their mind in a little bit of an altered state.
Yep.
Altered healing.
That's my company.
This is
Oh, geez. Green and altered, you're on fire
I'm on
today.
fire tonight. And but it probably puts them in a place where, like, you know, maybe if you weren't normal to listening to certain things or certain ideas from a therapist, you might open up to a little bit more. Because I mean, for Matt and I mean, beer is kind of a form of our therapy, right? We could sit here.
It's your
we
medicine.
could have a drink. We can be honest with one another, and we can just kind of discuss whatever's on our minds.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing behind that, though, is that the way we view it is we can have one and relax and be that's it, and then we can walk away.
Yeah.
Versus some people can't have one. Right.
Yeah.
And that's that where it becomes a problem, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'll be the first one to say, like, as much I love beer, but I also really like Scotch, and you don't need a lot. I'll be the firm believer that if someone sits you, and I did this years ago with my mother, because she was like, I don't really like Scotch. I'm like, you don't know how to drink it.
Yeah.
Sit down, almost like what you kind of do, because of walking
be
people through.
intentional with it.
Yeah, be intentional with it.
You should be the altered Scotch therapist.
The altered Scotch therapist.
I mean, you'd have cues out the door.
But you know, you sit down. There's a way to enjoy it.
Yep.
And when I kind of coached my mother through on how to drink it properly, now she loves it.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is as good as a massage.
Yeah.
Like it can. And I know some people think like, oh, that's just like alcohol and addiction. No. Like you can have like an ounce.
And you can smell it.
Just
And you
an
can, like, I did a Scotch
Yeah.
tasting in Scotland, and it really, it helped change. But it's like, I like smoky whiskeys and all
right.
that. And it's like, but it can be an experience. And I think with anything,
Bingo.
it's being intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, when I realized, like, the more intentional I've got with certain things, the less I need them, which is interesting. It's like, for example, like, the more intentional I am with the use of anything, it's like, oh, I don't need it as much. It's like, the more intentional I am with even the things I eat, I'm like, oh, I actually don't need to eat the same things as frequently, because I'm just being mindful and present to what it is that I'm enjoying. And it's the same with any, like, I enjoy psychedelics, but I usually will have an intention with the experience. And I kind of always did, even if, like, I never had, like, the scary bad trips, because you'd hear the stories of, like, someone who's like, it's like, oh, I'm going to do mushrooms and I really want to get messed up. And then they're shocked when they have this really messed up, like, ruins their lifetime. And it's like, I can never do that again. It's like, well, what was your intention? It's like, oh, intention was to get messed up. I'm like, well, you succeeded, didn't you?
Yeah,
you went to, like, the edges of, like, sanity and back. And so these medicines, I think a lot of people are afraid of. And it just comes down to intention.
So do you work as like an initial guide for somebody to kind of introduce themselves to these weed, or is it more like you're continuously there to kind of provide them therapy with weed?
So I usually will do, like, I have a series where, like, we'll start with, like, one prep session to really figure out intentions. Then I do 2 medicine sessions with people that can be 3 or 5 hours.
Yep.
And that's really to figure, like, to give them the space. I do 2 because the first one kind of, like, opens us up. and moves things around, kind of like I always use the example of a snow globe. It's like we've shaken everything up, and the second one allows things to kind of land.
Yeah.
And then I do an integration session just to kind of help make sense of things. But then after the experience, like they have their own blend. I send them the playlist that I use, and the whole thing is like I want them to be able to start the playlist. So music plays throughout the experience. Music is a huge part of psychedelic medicine and psychedelic therapy.
It's so fun.
Can I have the playlist?
I can send you a playlist,
Oh, please
100%.
do.
Yeah.
You know, it's really funny you say that because my cousin who's been on the show, he kind of uses cannabis as his like escape and a way to connect with a friend who lives across the country in Calgary.
Yeah.
And they do their syncs, right? And so they will they just text, they take cannabis, they wait until it kind of starts to hit, and they'll choose like an album to listen to.
Amazing.
Or they may do a song for song.
I love that idea.
So they get stoned together and call each other on the phone. Listen
No,
to
they
the same
don't call.
record?
No. Everything's done through text.
Oh.
So they listen to it. They hit go. They go like 1, 2, 3, go or whatever, and they hit the album at the same time. So they're hearing the song at the same time, but they're not together. You're by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're connecting with your friends. So I've actually done a couple of these, and actually it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
You sit there and like you just eat junk food, I guess, because you get the munchies.
I even provide snacks to my clients. That's
there
one of the
you
things.
go.
That's the main side
That's
effect
pretty
of
cool.
cannabis. Like I'll show up with
That'll
the
get you
snacks.
some return business for sure.
I mean, it's
right?
one of those. It's great, but the music is a huge part of it. And so compared to like psilocybin, where the medicine is big, the experience is big.
Yeah.
Where it's like
Now,
cannabis.
have you tried those types of adventures yourself as
Oh
well?
yeah, I have. It's like it was so funny. Part of my training when I started working in the clinic in Colorado, it was like they were going to hire me, and I was being hired, and like I was in the interview, and she's like, I'd start you tomorrow, but you haven't used ketamine, so you got to use ketamine first.
Right.
Oh, what?
And so because it was like, it's like I can't be with my clients in these spaces.
How do I apply for this
I
job?
know, right?
Like,
Literally,
serious.
college me. I would
Yeah.
love to bump into her and be like, girl.
Yeah.
Guess what we're gonna do?
Yeah.
But it's one of those where it's like I have experienced these because it's so like I really can't. It's the same like I did part of my psychotherapy training. I was in 40 hours of therapy a year because I can't support people in the depths of their experience unless I've been there too.
Right.
And it's the same with psychedelic therapy. Like I have explored these places. I try to do it like relatively regularly just to look at like what is my own shadows. What are the things I need to look at.
Yeah.
And be able to explore it. But like the music is very different.
Can you
for
maybe
both of
tell
them.
us a story? And I mean, you have to respect client confidentiality,
Yeah.
and we're totally on board with that. And so don't tell us the person or who it was.
Yeah.
But like, do you have a maybe any kind of stories you could pull from your experience that really turned somebody around through usage that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, the one that was most incredible to
Yeah.
me was I was working with a client. This was in Colorado. She'd had a heart attack at 35 and went to the doctor, and they were like, "There's nothing wrong with you." She's like, "What do you mean? There's nothing wrong with me. I had a heart attack at 35."
Right.
And every time she
Yeah.
got stressed, she'd feel tightness in her chest.
That alone would give you like...
Yeah.
Even that would give
Every
you some
time she
panic.
got stressed, she was worried, like, am I having another heart
Right.
attack?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I began
You get
working with
PTSD
her.
from that.
Exactly. And I was working with a lot of the really clinical cases because I have a background in psychotherapy. And it's like I was working with her, and we started this was with cannabis experience. We started at the very beginning of the experience. She shared that she felt like the weight of the room was on her chest. Like she could feel like that experience. One of the things that's important in having me there, having someone with you, is that often when we've had traumatic events, we've been so alone. Mm-hmm. And we've been then trying to get through it on our own. So in this experience, I was reminding her to breathe. And I was like, I want you to put your hand on your stomach. So she put her hand on her stomach. I was like, I'm going to put my hand on yours. And then I just got her to breathe into her belly. And just all these tears came because I was there with her. And as what was happening is that she was actually getting flashbacks from trauma that had happened that she had no recollection of.
Wow.
And so as we went through the experience, and we worked together for about a week doing medicine sessions, and what had happened was she got flooded by all these incredibly traumatic events that she had blocked out, but her body had
That
remembered.
doesn't sound pleasant to be confronting those demons, like especially high.
It's
like that sounds terrifying.
But it's different than feeling high. It does, like you do, the body, the reason you can do this is because the body actually feels quite safe. The
Right,
body
okay.
feels at ease. It's very different than it's a particular blend that I'm using that allows for this. But she was able, we had to talk about a lot of the stuff that came up. But she was able to process it, and before our next session, she sat down and she'd written down all the things that she'd remembered that she had totally blocked out. And she shared it with me. And she was like, I think sharing it with you will mean that it won't come into the space. And it did. And so what had happened after that is the next time she was stressed, her chest never got tight. The next time, it's like literally everything, all these traumatic events had been weighing on her body and in her chest.
Just kind of changed her.
It completely changed the trajectory. Next time I saw her, she was able to, like, she had a really stressful thing coming up, and she's like, but I don't feel it in my body anymore. And so it's like the ability to move through these things. It's like if you think about all the experiences you've ever had that you left and you're like, ugh, that didn't feel great, but it's still in there. Like, it's very difficult for us to process things somatically, like through the body. Like a lot of animals shake. We don't really shake. We don't really let things out. And so a lifetime of experience just gets stuck or calcified. And there's things that happen when we're younger that we don't remember, that literally, because our body is so good at keeping us safe, it just blocks out. Like those experiences were too overwhelming for her. So her body was like holding it, but her mind had totally blocked it out. And I've seen that a few times where there's like memories, or people will get flashes of things, not maybe as traumatic, but like, oh, this happened and this led to this, and this is why I do this. And it's like being able to look at it through an adult lens and process it differently, or even just have someone there be like, can I tell you what it was that happened? They're no longer alone.
Do you get a lot of do you get a lot of repeat customers, a lot of repeat business, and like how long would you say how long do people have to visit you before they say like I'm good, or do they do that? Or?
I mean, you can do like years of therapy in these hours. So like sometimes I see people once a year.
Okay.
Like just once a year, you kind of
they do this session, and it's like, again, like
that's kind of a cool way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
You hit the reset button.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the first, and it's like interesting. The folks I've been meeting here are different. I think also because it's like when I was working in Colorado, people were flying from all over the states to come to this clinic, and then I was working with some of the real clinical cases.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it's like here it's kind of been refreshing where it's like able to support people who are like trying to get through these blocks, and then they can feel so much better, and it's often like this is the first time that working with cannabis in this way has been offered here. I'm the first one doing it in this way.
Right.
And it's just a very gentle way, though. Like that was an intense experience for that person. However, they were able to then move through their life in a very different way.
That's cool.
When did you start? When did you come back here, and when did you start?
I haven't even been here a year.
Not even a year. Okay.
No.
That's cool. So
and you're getting lots of clients?
Cannabis?
I'm getting I'm kind of, it's basically I'm trying to just let people know that I'm here.
Right.
So it's letting people know, and but so far it's been kind of like a client, doing a series with a client a week, which is great. It's even just to get started and be able to support people in that way. And it's I love that I get to bring it here, because I have healed from so much of the experiences that made me want to leave. I have been able to heal through because of this work. And so to be able to return here and then offer it to other people and be like, look, I know this works. I have done it. And again, it's not for everyone, but there'll be people that'll be listening to this and are like, this is what I need. And it's I would trust that
intuition. People will hear it
themselves,
But now, so I'm gonna have a question on that too.
Okay.
Sorry, Matt.
I have two questions.
You can all ask questions.
Me and then Matt.
No problem.
This question, though, I mean, to someone that's taking more pharmaceutical style ways of treatment.
Yep.
When is it right for them to look into this, and when is it wrong, or is that how do you kind of I don't know. That's where I would be challenging, because you're taking a tremendous risk in a sense, right? Because somebody gets off a medication that they might severely need.
Well, with cannabis, they don't have to get off the medication.
They don't.
So that's why it's safe. So it's psilocybin, you really can't be on these mental health medications.
Okay.
There aren't contraindicators, which means there aren't there aren't medications that really don't work with cannabis.
Yeah.
But even for me, I start with a free discovery call and I talk to people. And then what I do after that is I send them all my paperwork.
Okay.
And in the paperwork, I outline these are all the possible things that can happen in the experience. And I've had folks actually from the paperwork be like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I'm and they're I'm so sorry. I'm do not apologize. This is wonderful. I am so glad you have self-selected out because you realize it's not for you.
Right.
It's that's great. And I get people to just fill out a safety questionnaire to see, again, if there's personality disorders. This just isn't proven to really benefit a lot.
Right.
And with any of this, you're kind of jumping in, will this help me? And it's I've seen it help so many people. How much it will help? we'll wait and see, really. It's like, but I really would work with folks that I know this could be of huge benefit for, and there aren't really those negative. That's again the benefit of working with cannabis. I don't have to say like, you need to get off this medication. It's like, well, if without this medication I'll be, it's like I can't survive. It's like, well, then this psilocybin's not for you. But cannabis, and I will also work with folks if they've never smoked. We would start the session instead of like a full smoking ceremony. I'll be like, just take one puff and let's just keep talking.
Yeah.
It's like, again, for me, I have to make sure people feel safe.
Yeah.
If they don't feel safe, they can't explore where they need to explore. So my goal and job is to make sure they feel as safe as possible.
So I'm going to ask the two questions that everybody wants to know.
Go.
Sure, go for it.
How much would it cost to go through a session?
Yeah.
And is it covered?
It's not covered.
I figured as much.
I know.
All right.
Anything new like that is not.
Anything's not, and I'm not a licensed counseling therapist, only
Right.
because the licensing board is, you have to be working in a very specific
Well, you're the first.
realm. I'm the
So, being realistically, like
It's like I talked to my lawyers, and they were like, there was someone who was like licensed, and they also did Reiki, and then they lost their license, and it's like, yeah, I'm not like, and
Yeah.
what I'm doing, I'm not like psychedelic therapy, although it has the word therapy in it, is very different than traditional therapy. Again, like
That's a wide range.
it's such a wide ranging
Yeah.
word, and it's more so again like I'm providing the container, the safe space, and the person's body and the medicine are going where they need to. Like I am the guide to help them maneuver the space. It's very different than like offering therapy.
Yeah.
And the
Cool.
cost wise, it's like depending if people want the 2 3-hour sessions or the 2 5-hour sessions. So you do like an hour-long prep, you do the 2 medicine sessions, and then the integration, and that would be $1,200 or $1,800.
Okay.
Should we do a session? for the afternoon
Dude,
pint?
that was going to be my follow-up question.
So
is,
I can actually do I can do group events. I
groups
could
would be
do
cool,
you
right?
could do
Like to
groups,
kinda go
but you
through a
could
session.
do like you could literally the
Would
both
you be
of you
comfortable
could
putting something like
experience.
that on a YouTube channel?
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
that's
There you
exactly
go.
where I was going with this.
Because what you could do, so it would be
100%.
like you do like a smoking ceremony, and then you do the guided meditation. You get to hear like the really big, intense music,
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
only difference is when it's groups or more than one person, is there just isn't like the active guiding component, which would be so. For example, if we're one-on-one,
Or like an active confrontation of actually solving issues that you
no,
might have
you can,
people
but you can
complex.
still sell. You can genuinely again, like my big experience wasn't
Yeah.
a one-on-one. That was
Right,
in my
it was a
training.
group
Yeah.
It was a
Sorry.
group
Okay.
session. So
Cool.
it's like you can still do a lot of healing. It's just more so like the only time I don't recommend it is if people are like, this is this very intense trauma I want to work on. It's like, well, maybe the group experience is not for you.
Right.
But otherwise, yeah, no, like if we could 100% very easily have you guys get to experience this.
Yeah,
Cool.
that would be cool. The I guess the other thing I was going to ask is like, do they? I'm guessing you go to them, kind of thing. Or-
I can't, yeah. So I have a space,
Yeah.
but I also do house calls.
Okay.
So again, if safety is important, which it is, people
Yeah, 'cause I
often
was
feel
wondering
safer at
about-
their home.
Well, I was also thinking about like, intoxication while operating a motor
Yeah,
vehicle.
so I have
things
very,
that.
like I literally will ask, they have to have a designated driver if they're coming to the space that I'm working out of.
Okay, yeah.
So it's either a designated driver or an Uber or but they are not permitted to drive. Also, just because if you're worried about driving, you're not going to go into this deep space because you'll be like,
True.
well, I got to drive myself home
Right.
later. So again, for your own,
just a total relaxation.
Driving home at
Yeah.
25 kilometers an hour.
Yeah. Again, I make sure people have a driver, but it's great if, and it's been nice. Like I've gone to Kempville, I've gone to Shelburne, I've gone
Okay.
to like all over the province. I'll happily travel to bring this work to where people feel they're safest, which is usually the home. So
Yeah.
then like the prep and integration sessions can just be online. And then I bring everything. Like I bring the folding mattress, I bring the comfy blankets, I bring the oracle decks, I bring the crystals if they want it.
It sounds like a magical experience.
It's a
Honestly,
magical
it
experience.
kind of sounds like ayahuasca light.
So we could add breath work to it, and then it's actually like ayahuasca.
I always thought like it'd be
But
really
like
cool to
ayahuasca
like
is terrible because it makes you
You-
vomit.
you're- yeah,
and, like,
without the
diarrhea
purging.
and-
But it's
yeah.
more like I worked when I did my training. We did like we do big breathwork experiences
Right.
with it. And there was someone who got back from an ayahuasca experience, and he was like, "Oh, he's like this was like my ayahuasca experience, but without the vomiting."
That sounds way better, as I hate vomiting.
Yeah, you'll be hungry at the end, and I will provide you with snacks.
you're like a Snoop Dogg spirit guide.
That's, I mean, that's exactly. I'm going to rename my company. Actually, what am I thinking? Like,
Yeah.
why am I not
Snoop
called that?
Dogg? Snoop Dogg spirit guide.
I don't know.
That's something that'll be his next move.
Yeah. So
I
can I
think
tell
you
you what
could be
we're
an
doing
investor.
real quick?
Yes, tell me.
Matt, what do we have behind us?
Oh, we have beer. Yeah.
We're at Great
lots of
Roads
beer.
Brewing.
We're at Great Roads. You know what we should
And what do we
actually-
do? What do we
quick
do
little
Sunday?
chat. So this is Great Roads Brewing. I'm drinking the Copper Lager. You're drinking one of my favorites, the Red IPA.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's
they're
almost
great.
gone, but it's great.
Yeah, and behind us, we have our very own beer, which is going to be the brought to you by Afternoon Pint and Great Roads. It's going to be the Tartan Coffee Brown.
Yes.
So we are doing that. We're doing a beer launch.
So Afternoon Pint, Tartan Coffee Brown.
Yeah.
And we call it Tartan Coffee Brown because you went way back. I don't know how many episodes, I don't know what episode this is going to be.
the first episode.
The first episode was our friend Marc Wilson, who had a coffee truck. We told a story about launching a coffee business in a pandemic. And it's his coffee beans that are going in the brew. So that's pretty darn
Yeah,
cool.
we
That's
got
amazing.
here at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning and
Yeah.
brewed beer.
And May 25th, we're having a little...
24th.
May 24th.
Keep
Thank
saying
you.
2-4. 2-4.
Oh,
Do you
keep saying
actually
that.
work together? Is
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
May 24th, we have a beer launch.
May 24th.
We got about just 100 liters of beer here. We're gonna try to have it in a night or two. So if it's not finished Friday night, we'll put it out on our social media.
It's also a fundraiser.
It's also a fundraiser.
Yeah, so another guest. It's linked to a few guests. So we have a guest, hip hop artist, Indigenous hip hop artist who named Clint Sock, and he has a lot of health problems, and they're trying to arrange for him to go on like basically a dream trip, and so Great Roads was really great with us.
Yeah.
On that day, anyone who comes in and whatever food and beer they buy, 10% of the proceeds are going to go to Clint.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. So yeah.
And he's an awesome guy with an awesome episode. That was
Yes.
a fun episode. He rapped.
Yeah.
He had a donair rap, and it was great.
He made donairs very sexual.
Yeah, he sexualized the donair. Like maybe overly
Gross.
sexualized the
I
donair.
I don't even. You know what?
It went in a lot of ways. I'm going to try to memorize that song for the party.
Yeah, that'd be great,
And,
yeah.
and see if I can rap it for him.
Yeah.
Because it was great. It was really fun. Yeah. But really smart guy. Really
Yeah.
fun guy. Yeah. So we love you, Clint, if you're listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so honestly, like, and you're welcome to come on
I
down.
would love
yeah.
to.
You are invited to the party. You
Oh
can
my
run it.
God,
Yep,
amazing.
absolutely.
We've sent
Yep.
invites to guests, like previous guests and stuff like that. So yeah, please come on down. So, but I think there's something to this. I think we should do something.
So-
You want to get therapy anyway.
Sort of. So I have an idea.
Sort of.
So Matt wants to do a ghost story. We all
Yes.
kind of want to go on our own and do like mini series.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Matt wants to do one where you tell about your idea.
Well, my thing is like, you know, like the big thing today is everyone listening to murder stories.
Yeah.
And I'm not into that.
I do not do that myself.
Yeah, so, but some people love it. And
I
we
know.
actually had a podcast, people on, like they came on here and they told us about what they do and they're doing very well. And like, it's a huge following. But I guess I'm into it just afterwards because I like ghosts.
Yeah.
I like ghost stories. I like
Yeah.
the folklore
Yeah.
and everything like that comes along with it. So I'm like, I think I want to do just like a little like Afternoon Pints presents like just ghost stories.
Nice.
We sit together and whenever that'd be a great thing to do on Cannabis. Actually, to be quite honest with you, just have people just
High on ghosts.
high on ghosts.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We can drink. Maybe we can drink scotch and have some cannabis and tell ghost stories, and we can just call it high spirits.
I mean, I feel like this will unravel so quick.
Oh,
Mixing
well.
scotch and cannabis and ghost stories. I'm here for it.
That'd be
I,
wild, though. I love it.
I love
think
it
it's a
too.
great
I
idea.
think high spirits would be a great name.
High spirits.
I told him,
super
like,
great.
I'd help produce, but I said you should do the ghost thing on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my project was just going to be called Mike Gets Therapy.
Great.
And I go around and get therapy from different,
Oh, amazing. Yeah,
different ways, different
Yeah.
experiences to try to
Yeah.
just
Because it's like incredible to me. You know, it's like there's so many different things out there for everyone.
Sure.
Like there's hundreds of thousands of self-help books.
Yeah.
That's because that thing worked for someone, worked for
Right.
maybe 100 people,
Right.
Yeah.
but not everything works for everyone. And so
Right.
I think sometimes people have bad therapy experiences,
Yeah.
and it's like maybe the therapist wasn't right, maybe the type of therapy wasn't right, and it's like I think people need to know that you can explore that. It's the same as like, if your doctor is not listening to your concerns,
Yeah.
you go to a different doctor.
Not Nova Scotia, you don't.
No, I know. Oh,
Yeah,
like, I
Canada,
definitely don't
you're
have
lucky.
a doctor.
You don't have
I've
one?
been here a year. Who knows when
Yeah,
I'll
we
have a
fought for
doctor.
one.
Yeah.
We managed to find one, but here we have people have half doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's about at least looking though and figuring out like
Right.
what is right for you.
Yeah.
And I think anyone that has that pull of like I want to explore therapy or it's like I always trust that intuition because it's like then there's something that like we know is like I want to look at this and like, I believe we could all benefit from being a little more self-compassionate. Like,
Yes.
most
Agree
of
with
us
that.
are, like, you were not speaking so nicely about yourself at the beginning. And it's like,
Yeah.
you can't talk like that about yourself.
I have a bit of a belly growing right now at 40, and I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah.
That's what she's talking about.
No, well, I'm just saying.
I saw
more
myself in a video. We did the ghost hunter video, and all I could look at was my stomach, and I was like, "Ew."
Aw. But
I
it's
don't like
more
that
so-
guy. I used to
it's-
be so skinny.
No, be
Yeah.
nice to that guy.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like speaking badly to ourselves isn't gonna make us change.
True.
You know what? I agree with that, and that's some things that I tell people when like, having these conversations.
I sort of agree, but I'm more no. I
agree
don't,
for
I don't
others, but
agree.
not yourself.
No.
Yeah,
I agree for
100%.
others, sure. But for me, no. I think I think sometimes saying no, you're a piece of shit. You got to do better.
That is awful.
that does actually work for some people.
helps me quite a bit.
Okay.
Really does.
Does it actually help, or do you also feel a little bit bad?
No, I
No.
feel no guilt.
Okay.
I feel like sometimes I have to look at myself and call it how it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what the fuck is this? Right?
I
When I look at my
see
stomach,
nothing.
I
I
literally,
see nothing.
to me, it looks like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I used to be a skinny little guy, and I could eat and eat and eat. Like, everyone wanted to throw me a pork chop. I always looked hungry. I was so skinny, you could see every rib. Right? But now it's just like, no one wants to give me a pork chop anymore.
But it's just more so it's like noting, because it's like one of those things that I noticed even from like, so when I was working in the judicial system, it's like I was doing a lot of like alcohol training, but then we were also doing a lot of DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy.
Okay.
So you've heard probably of CBT, which is like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
So that's where we're looking at the thinking to change the behavior, or the behavior to change the thinking. Where dialectical behavioral therapy, we're kind of looking at like two opposites can be true. So it's like I can be doing the best I can and also want to be doing better. But a lot of it is also coming from this place of like we should always assume best intentions, and we should really try not to judge others or make assumptions about them. And it was interesting, the more I did that, the more I was like really in tune with the voice in my head. And I was like, damn, I am not very nice to myself. And realizing that the more I became aware of that, and it's like not judging the judging, but just having this awareness.
Right.
So it's like when I'd notice this voice, I'm like, oof, that was a bit mean. And it's like basically if you envision like someone standing in your house speaking to you the way you speak to yourself, if you would be like, get the hell out of here, don't you ever speak to me like that, then that shows like the way we speak to ourselves is not helpful.
You're raising a kid, right?
I am.
And
Next
how
thing,
old
gotta
is
be
he
careful.
now?
He is 6.
Does he doesn't destroy you mentally?
Nope.
He will.
He does sometimes, but no.
He
but
will.
it's more
Wait
so.
till he gets like 12 and you don't give him what he wants. And he's just
100%.
like, you're worthless. He'll tell you. He will.
Are you?
Gracie's in there going like, no one's
Drag
your
you
pork
to the
chops
night
fatso.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah. So anyways.
Well, okay. Besides a human that I'm trying to, in fairness, he's the epitome of sweetness and light.
I
But
hope it stays that way.
It's me too, forever. And if not, I will come back, and you can be like, I
Sure.
told you so.
Yeah.
But it's more so like, but it's just noting like that voice. And often when I work with people, it's like the way, like same thing. They'll just because I notice it quite a lot. Like when people are being quite critical of themselves, I'll kind of just note it and be like, I don't like if someone else sat down, you would never say that to them. And it's just even having that
Could you
like
imagine?
yeah, exactly. But it's like having that notice because it's like then that like someone is saying that to you, even if it's yourself.
Yeah,
Right.
of course.
And so
No,
it's
I
just
totally
kind of
agree with what you're saying.
noting that. And it's interesting, like out of the work I do, that's often the biggest benefit is people seem to have this self-compassion because you can reflect on your life in a new way.
What's a little different maybe about me though is I actually feel tremendous relief by making fun of myself a bit.
Fair.
Right? And I really do.
Yeah.
It's like I just feel like when I let it out and I just make fun of myself
Yeah.
or whatever it is, I feel better, and I feel better if I made them laugh and make them feel more comfortable.
You like being
And
self-deprecating.
I love self-deprecating humor. I
I
always
gotta be
have.
honest, I actually really like making fun of him too. So maybe it's just a thing. So
That is fine. That's fair. But it's just figuring out like what works for you and what works for others.
So it kind of helps. I don't. It doesn't bother me
Yeah.
that much, right?
It
And it makes
causes
me
you to
Teflon
motivate.
for those kids when they become adolescents,
Fair,
man. Because
yeah.
they get tough. They
Yeah,
get tough.
So jumping back to, you mentioned a couple times about addiction and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So do you find that what you do actually helps with kind of getting people to like give up substances that may be more harmful?
It can. So it's like one of the like medicines people could also explore if it's for addiction would be like ketamine can be really beneficial for that. It's really good for like pattern breaking, and because of the way it kind of like allows for like new neural pathways to form. The thing that the cannabis can be really helpful for is often like addiction is just, it's been a form of coping. So it's like something usually traumatic happened, and from that traumatic event, the only way to deal with it, the nervous system was overwhelmed. So we just turned to substances. Like all of this is usually just like, okay, I can't deal with this, but this helps. This makes me feel better. And so it starts small and then it ends up snowballing. Right. And so the cannabis experience can help with like working through whatever that traumatic thing was that probably led to needing to use whatever it was. Like when I was working in Colorado, a lot of like I was working with the male DUI, like multiple DUI offenders, and a lot of them had started drinking so young that they actually didn't have emotional regulation skills. And so I was really kind of teaching even some really basic emotional regulation stuff that they weren't aware of, that they never learned. But it's just because when you start drinking really young, you don't really, it's like you get upset, you drink, you get angry, you drink. And so it's like, so then you're not learning how to process these emotions.
You just fill that hole that you have.
Exactly. And that's why it's like, again, like becoming intentional with the things we use. And with addiction, there is also the actual physical addiction component, which can be very difficult to break. But if part of that is also looking at like, why did this start in the first place? And when you can kind of get to the root cause of that, like I worked with someone and they were able to like really recognize like, again, like, the traumatic event they were trying to look at, they looked at it and they worked on it, and their goal was to not drink anymore, and they just didn't drink anymore. Right. Because they were able to be like the thing that they were trying to really, the feeling they were trying to cover, they didn't need to cover it anymore.
There's something about like self-identifying what may be the trauma, and like, you know, it's like naming your demon, right? Yeah. You name your demon, and it gives you, like, by naming it, gives you power over it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll do parts work in the experience. So for example, like someone will be like, this part of me, you know, and often it's like the adult and the inner child. So it's like the adult is like, you should be over this by now. Right. This happened years ago. Right. Why are you not? Why are you still hung up? But then the inner child is like, no one was there for me. Right. No one heard me. No one helped me. No one kept me safe. And so it's like being able to kind of meld these two parts together so that then the adult, like, and I've worked with people where literally they have been able to console the small version of themselves in the experience. Yeah. And then that's been really healing. Because either way, we have to parent ourselves at this point. Even if the people, the caregivers, the parents who hurt us, even if they were to come to us and said, I am so sorry for the hurt I caused, we'd still be like, yeah, that's great, but I'm still picking up the pieces. Right. So we have to kind of come to terms with it. Yeah, exactly. So it's like the forgiveness is one part, but actually the healing is often on us.
One thing I saw recently, it was a 10-part series. Docu-series or whatever, and I originally started watching it just because it was something I was interested in, which is really, really hot stuff. Like, I like spicy foods, hot sauces, whatever. Hot.
Thought that was going in a different direction.
I know. I was like surfers.
I like spicy, like, and so it was called Super Hot. That's what this was called. It was a 10-part series. I was like, I'm going to watch this because it sounds really interesting. And it was. Lots of it was really interesting, but I took away something from it that I didn't think I would. And that's, so in hot peppers, when they get, well, in all of them, but as they get hotter, there's a chemical called capsaicin. Yep. And that has a way of reacting, and then we have receptors, right? So it has the receptors on it. But what I found interesting in this whole thing is that a lot of people who are involved in the super hot community, what they call it, people who eat hot peppers as a fun, but also competitively. Yeah. There's this woman in England who's been 10 years undefeated. She's like at the time of this recording, it was like she was approaching her 100th win eating super hots, and I'm like, she's eating insane, like the hottest peppers in the world. And some people were worried to eat one, and she ate 37 in one sitting.
Oh my god.
And the thing that I learned a lot about this community is a lot of them had previous addiction problems and have given it up and have been able to walk away from their addictions because of eating these hot peppers. And there's something they were kind of correlating,
like the neurochemistry
of like the capsaicin and being able to give up your addiction. And I mean, they essentially become addicted to these hot peppers.
So it sounds like.
But I mean, you know,
I guess it's better. It's,
What's the stomach lining?
Yeah, I was going to say their digestive tract is not a fan, but it probably wasn't great anyways.
But it was an interesting documentary. But I was kind of interested by like saying like, you know, is that something we should be exploring? Like trying to get people
off heroin by giving them hot peppers? Is that what
Seriously, yeah, whatever, yeah.
But
they're sweating so much they can't get like
there's something
things straight.
There's something for everyone. You know, like there's something that can be very healing, and I really believe that. Like you can find what that healing piece is. Yeah. And it's like that's why it's nice to offer something that's a little different, because you know it's like maybe what's been going on just doesn't work anymore.
Right. Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Like kind of just more options. So I mean, do you encourage and want to have competition in the province, or do you want to like?
I mean, more healers the better. Genuinely, like I'm not. I also can only do so much.
That's true too.
But it's more so. It's like I don't. I still work sometimes with the company that I worked with in Colorado. I actually do interviews for their training program where it's like I'm helping new psychedelic guides get into this field.
So what kind of background does a psychedelic guide need to have?
So with this program, you don't need a therapeutic background because they really feel like if you're called to do this work, there's a reason. And it's like you don't need where it's like I feel like a lot of this is getting very medicalized, and it's taking away, like there's been indigenous cultures that have been doing this work since time began. And like there's going to be shaman that won't be able to do this work because they don't have a master's, which is ludicrous.
Right.
So that'd be hilarious.
But it's true. Like there's already which is so terrible. So with this training program, you don't need to have like a background in therapy or nursing. I've interviewed people with all kinds of different backgrounds that have really felt drawn because like maybe they've done their own psychedelic work and they've they just really feel like this is their calling. And so then what they do is they get the skills to be able to sit for other people and be able to do the work.
Cool. Well, Angela, this was a really awesome interview.
Yeah, I thought this was a great conversation.
We call it interview, chats, whatever. I want to cheers to you.
Yeah.
So your business, Altered Healing.
Altered Healing.
And you can find, what's your website?
AlteredHealing.com.
Perfect.
I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm everywhere, you guys.
Awesome. We'll make sure your links in our episode description.
Wonderful.
It's really awesome meeting you.
Yeah.
Have this beer. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.